So in this last video for this section, we're still creating some charts based on the different frequency distributions that we got from our male and female data. And we got up to part C where we did the side-by-side bar chart. So now what we're going to do is we're going to construct a bar chart for the relative frequency for male data. And then we're also going to construct a pie chart for the relative frequency for the female data. And then we're going to answer the question, well, based on all these graphs, how do we interpret that? And so let's start off with so this is part D. So this is our male car colors purchased in a week. So we'll just start with this one. And so we'll try to make this, it's not necessarily a pie, but you get the idea. And remember, it asks us to be able to use the relative frequency. All right, so the first one that we have is 20%. And so 20% is a little bit less than a quarter, so maybe something like this. All right, so this is our 20%. We'll just put 0.20 in there, and we're just going to say that that's our yellow. Right. The next two are both 35%. All right, so they should be the biggest sectors. Now, 20 and 35 are going to make 55, so that's going to be a little bit more than half of the circle. All right, so this is our blue. And this is going to be at 0.35. And we're just going to leave a little slither for that green to represent 10%. It doesn't have to be very accurate because we're doing it by hand. Later in the course, I'm going to show you how to use Excel to be able to do this using technology. So for right now, we're just trying to visualize it. So this is red at another 35%. And this is our green. I'm just going to draw an arrow in here. And this is 0.10. All right. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for the female data. All right. So I'm just going to copy and paste this distribution. And this is our part E. And for our female data, again, we're utilizing the relative frequency. Now remember, this is the third column is our relative frequency column. I know it doesn't indicate that, but we do remember that from when we constructed the frequency distribution. And so these are the colors of cars purchased by females in a week. All right. And so we just draw, hopefully, a little bit better circle. Not too terrible, not too great. And then it doesn't really matter. So we're going to go through, and for the yellow, we have 2. So that's about 9%. All right, so we'll say 0.091, and it's just going to be a small slither. So maybe something like this, and that's going to be 0.091. And let's just draw in here that this is our yellow. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the blue, which is about 41%. And notice if we add these together, that's 50%. So really nicely, we can just draw a straight line down, and that should represent the other 0.409. Fortunately for us, and that's going to be our blue. 36%, maybe something like this. Now the remaining sector should be a little bit bigger than the yellow sector, so I tried to apportion it as such as best as I can. If I really want to emphasize it, get rid of that and just draw it a little bit more to the left. All right, just so that way somebody can look at it and see it, just to emphasize it. So this is our red, and this is 0.364 by rounding to 3 decimal places. And then finally we have a green, and that's going to be 0.136. All right, so those are our 2 pie charts. All right, not meant to be too difficult for us. Now, the ultimate question as to what we're answering, and this is a really sneaky question, is that if someone were to ask you if there was a difference, and I'm going to copy to paste the question. Well, I might, if I can get down there. So let me just go back up. Just go up here, and just hit enter a few times. All right. Now, if someone were to ask you if you think that there is a difference in the color of cars purchased in male and female buyers, how would you reply? So one thing that we noticed is the type of study that we did. This was mainly an observational study, right? Okay, so let's just kind of characterize and kind of put this all together from the definitions, right? And then what we did was we took a look at male data and we took a look at female data, and we didn't ask them to recall anything. So that means we didn't do one of those studies to where we went through and said it was a case control study, because case control asks us to ask them what they thought. And then of course it wasn't a cohort study, because we didn't do one of those studies where we just kind of looked at the same observation throughout a span of time. So really what we had a cross-sectional observation study. Okay. And what do we remember about cross-sectional observational studies? Well, we remember that they are easy, but not too reliable. Right? So that's one thing we might remember about that. If we don't remember it, now we do remember it. Or we want to make sure we remember that for an examination or quiz. All right? Now, let's see what else we can kind of gather from this. All right? Remember when we did the bar charts, especially the side-by-side bar chart? And I know I did this a while ago, but looking at the side-by-side, I'll just say SBS bar chart, we noticed that there was no major disparity between color and gender except for yellow. But what does that really mean? Okay, remember there was about a 10% difference. And we could just look at the frequency distributions down here. Notice we have 20% and we have about 9%. So it's not about more like 11%, but that's not a big deal. We're just approximating. All right. And remember that phrase that we used before about association and causation. So, and of course I'm going to spell check this. I know I spelled it wrong. And you might remember that we cannot say causation. We can only say association. One thing that we also have to remember is that for the males, n is equal to 20. For the females, n is equal to 22. Okay, these are relatively small samples. And what does that necessarily mean? Well, that means that they may not represent the population. All right, so of course the data suggested that maybe there's a slight disparity in yellow. But after we start looking at some of the definitions that we saw earlier with respect to the cross-sectional study, and we look at the idea of sample sizes and association and causation, we keep all of these things in mind. And here's how you might answer this question if you're an informed statistician. All right, you would present all of these different facts about the difference of the study taken, the sample size, and the disparity, and the fact that association and causation are not the same thing. And what you could probably say is that further investigation, such as a cohort study, may be necessary to truly determine a disparity between gender and car purchase or car color purchase. All right. And also, of course, we want more samples. or let's just say more observations, if possible. All right, so a statistician is always critical of the data that they have. All right, so of course we can put together a bar chart and a pie chart and a Pareto chart. Okay, and that's all great, but we have to keep in mind the definitions that we looked at earlier. All right, so if you were to answer this question, hopefully by coupling these definitions with what we got with the bar charts and pie charts, you can make a better informed decision than just looking at the charts themselves.